taking you around our fine city of stories. In front of us is the Bell Hotel. It is believed to date back to 1485 and was one of the city's leading coaching inns. In World War II, the top floor was converted into a dormitory for the American Women's Army Air Corps. Coming up on our left is Grade 1 listed St. Stephen's Church. The first documented mention of St. Stephen's Church is a 12th century royal charter, when royal endowments were bestowed upon the Benedictine Priory in Norwich Cathedral. Major rebuilding works took place in the early 16th century and resulted in some parts of the church being more elaborate than others. Much of the original stained glass was destroyed during the English Civil War, when a nearby powder magazine exploded. Further restoration work was undertaken in 1858, which saw the removal of the West Gallery, the opening of the West Door, and new stained glass fitted. During a World War II bombing raid in September 1942, a 250-kilogram bomb fell within the churchyard but failed to explode. If it had detonated, it would have destroyed the church. On our left is Chapel Field Gardens. The formal gardens were opened in 1880, but before that, this area was used in the 15th century to train archers for the Battle of Agincourt. In 1666, the area was used as a mass burial site for victims of the Great Plague, and at the end of the 18th century, a large reservoir was built here. Following an outbreak of cholera in the city, the reservoir was abandoned in 1849 and filled in. The bandstand was a slightly later addition, appearing in 1899 along with a children's play area. Coming up on the left is St Giles House. Built in 1852, it was originally the headquarters for the London and Norwich Fire Insurance Company. Ironically, around 1901, the building was destroyed by fire and was redesigned by renowned architect George Skipper, who also designed Marble Hall. During World War II, secret government meetings took place in the Walnut Suite on the third floor. Government and military officials would use underground tunnels between St Giles Church and the Mancroft area at St Giles House and hold meetings in the boardroom. The building has been home to a boutique hotel since 2000. On our right is City Hall, one of the finest municipal buildings of the interwar period. Completed in 1938 and officially opened by King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, it was designed in an Art Deco style and is the home of Norwich City Council. The new City Hall saw the demolition of Tudor, Regency and Victorian buildings on St Peter's Street and the Marketplace, including many yards and dilapidated municipal buildings. The main frontage of the building is 280 feet long and incorporates a 200-foot balcony and 185-foot high tower. It was built to the highest standards, using superior materials and methods of the time. Materials used include specially made bricks, Italian marble, English stone, Honduran mahogany and Australian walnut. Seating is upholstered in Moroccan leather and rooms were panelled in elm, oak, teak and birch. On our left is our First World War Memorial. Unveiled in 1927, it was originally located just east of the Guildhall building behind us, but was moved here as part of the work to construct City Hall in 1938. The memorial is made with Portland stone and has a low screen wall with a cenotaph topped with a carved wreath. It was the last of 8 cenotaphs created by designer Sir Edwin Lutyens, the most famous being the cenotaph in Whitehall. Ahead of us is the splendid St Peter Mancroft. There has been a church here since the Norman times, but the present church dates from 1430 and was constructed over a 25-year period, finally being consecrated in 1455. It is a particularly fine example of mid-15th century perpendicular style architecture and has remained unaltered by subsequent building. Its size is largely down to the generosity of the citizens and merchants of Norwich, keen to display their prosperity at a time when the city was the second wealthiest in England after London. The interior of the church is 180 feet long and reaches 60 feet in height. The east window contains fine examples of 15th century stained glass depicting scenes from the Bible, but in 1648, during the English Civil War, a nearby powder magazine exploded, causing all the windows of the church to be blown in. The exterior is faced almost entirely in limestone, brought to Norfolk at great expense from far afield, and combined with costly knapped flint work. St Peter Mancroft has a long history of bell ringing going back over 300 years. Of the present peal of 14 bells, 11 date from 1775, and the most recent is from 1997. They are rung regularly by the St Peter Mancroft Guild of Ringers. On our left is the Forum. It is a community building, constructed as a Millennium project for the East of England. Designed by Sir Michael Hopkins and completed in 2001, it stands on the site of the former Norwich Central Library, which opened in 1962, but was destroyed by fire in 1994. With the lot on the left is the former Bethel Hospital. Built in 1713, it was founded by Mary Chapman as a charitable institution and was the first purpose-built asylum in the country. Bethel Hospital was built on the site of the Committee House. It is here where rioters were careless with gunpowder, which resulted in the explosion that blew out the stained glass windows at St. Stephen's Church and St. Peter Mancroft.
Yeah. Well done.
Coming up on the right is Norwich Theatre Royal. There have been numerous theatres here, with the first built in 1757 by Thomas Ivory, who had completed the Assembly House just 2 years before. It was given its name in 1768, when it received its licence by royal assent, only the second provincial theatre to do so after Bath. A new building was built in the early 19th century to replace the original theatre, but a little over 100 years later, in 1934, fire swept through the building after starting beneath the stage. The third theatre to occupy the site opened just over a year later with a performance of the popular White Horse Inn. Ticket sales in the decades after the Second World War were particularly poor, and at one point in the mid-1960s, the owners applied for the theatre to be converted into a bingo hall, but this was refused. A major refurbishment took place in 2015, and today, Norwich Theatre Royal is one of the leading provincial theatres in the country, typically holding 400 performances per year, including children's shows, West End musicals, ballet, opera, dramas, comedy, and an annual Christmas pantomime. Coming up on our left is Grade 1 listed Surrey House, home to Marble Hall. Construction started in 1900 on the site of an earlier building owned by the Earl of Surrey. It was designed by local architect George Skipper, who also designed our Royal Arcade, and was commissioned by the then Norwich Union, now Aviva. The Palladian exterior is impressive, yet offers no indication of the architecture to be found within. Here, you can see 40 individual columns and a four-sided first-floor balcony, all made up of 15 varieties of marble. The marble was originally intended for Westminster Cathedral. However, because of budgetary issues, it ended up being sold here. The building also contains classically inspired frescoes, an 11-metre, partly glazed central dome, a glass atrium, and a chiming skeleton clock made for the Great Exhibition of 1851.